Happy Friday. Welcome into Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast presented by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. With you on Friday, April 5th, Brendan Glasheen, the host today, joined by Anthony DeBundo and Charlie DiSturco for Friday best bets around Major League Baseball. You can hear best bets for Payoff Pitch on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays during the baseball season. Subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Please leave a 5-star rating and review on the podcast audio side. You can also watch our content at Action Network YouTube. Subscribe there and find us for all of our programming for all sports. And we appreciate it. We appreciate the feedback. We're in the thick of the crossover, and then pretty soon baseball will have some time to itself, but we're not quite there yet with the Final Four and all that good stuff coming up, men's and women's. So we got a 13-game slate today. I'm counting it up. We've got 3 games that have a first pitch before 3 p.m. Eastern. We've got Blue Jays, Yankees, A's and Tigers, and then the Dodgers, who are home for a bit, got that West Coast timing down. Now they're going Midwest. They're taking on the Chicago Cubs. It's a Cubs Friday game, DeBundo. Are you excited about that?
Wind blowing in. Unfortunate.
You could
would have loved a Cubs reverse run line. I know. It's devastating.
You could have teased it up for later in the show to get people to listen if you were going to play the Cubs today. But
we're not really going too much into that based on our rundown. That game, Bobby Miller's everybody's darling. They're a huge road
also
favorite.
Playing a wagon, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup, right? Because I think we all believe that Miller's going to strike more guys out this year than he did last year, and the stuff has always suggested he will. But the Cubs lineup right now, very difficult to strike out as constructed, especially if Gomes starts at catcher, which I expect him to. They're bottom 5 in every category, from chase rate to swinging strike rate. It's a very disciplined lineup, so tough strikeout lineup for Miller, and I don't really want to go against the Dodgers either, so yes. I have not a ton of thoughts on that game.
Okay, very good.
But
well, the wind blowing in helped Hendricks though, so it is interesting.
All right,
I
was looking forward to that first Friday with DeBundo.
I was looking forward. I was looking maybe toward eating the juice on the Dodgers because of how bad Hendricks is. But the wind blowing in is definitely something that is of concern.
The first thing I looked at this morning was the wind.
So it's not happening. All right.
Nope.
Well, we'll work on the tease part for next time, and we'll.
For those who don't know, who may be new listeners, it's a running bit on this show. When the Cubs have a Friday home game and the weather's warm, it's also tougher in April 5th. But weather's warm, wind's blowing out. Cubs are at home on a Friday afternoon. We bet Cubs 0.5, aka we lay the run line with the Cubs. Originated by a couple college friends of mine, but they have confirmed that this is not a Cubs 0.5 today.
Okay. So Cubs, Dodgers, ESPN Plus, the Apple TV package, Mets at Reds, 640, and then the nightcap. I guess they're going to have 2 games going on at once. At 8:05, the Rangers take on the Houston Astros. So there you go. There are your national games for this Friday. Let's start with best bets. We'll work our way through. Charlie DiSturco, you can go first. What are you eyeing today? There's a certain pitcher on the mound that doesn't perform all too well at the top of the rotation still.
Yeah, I will say they probably moved up that Houston start on Apple TV to not watch the Mets as a standalone on Apple TV. But my favorite side of this slate is fading Patrick Corbin. It may not be Cubs first 5 day, but it's Patrick Corbin day. I think he's the worst pitcher in all of baseball. And even in his debut against the Reds, he couldn't get any strikeouts going. His strikeout rate has dropped year over year over year, and it's obviously down in just 1 game sample size. But last season struck out just 16% of total batters. He finished in the bottom 2% of all pitchers in expected batting average, sat in the mid 40% in hard hit rate, didn't generate whiffs, barreled a lot. There's literally nothing you can say from Patrick Corbin's body of work that is positive. And oddly enough, he's worse at home than he is on the road. So just from a pure pitching standpoint, Aaron Nola is a good buy low candidate after he got shelled by the Braves rather. But you look at the game and you look at the details and the pitches in that game from Nola. He was hard hit just 35% of the time. He didn't allow a single barrel. So, and I think that's like the biggest key here was that he limited the barrels. That was always his problem last season against the Nationals team as well, an offense that won't barrel the baseball often, like maybe Joey Gallo, if he can even make contact with the baseball. But I think Aaron Nola's biggest issues are not going to be put on display here. His flaws were not last season when he pitched against the Nationals as well. And the Phillies, like from a pure offensive standpoint as well, just hold the advantage here against left-handed pitching. They were 11th in WRC plus last year, 6th in isolated power as well. Players like Nick Castellanos, which I'm not too high on, but he did see a higher success against left-handed pitching, as well as Alec Boehm, JT Realmuto, even Bryce Harper had some good numbers. So push comes to shove, offensive advantage, pitching advantage leads me to first 5. If anyone follows me in the Action app, I am not really messing with these full game money lines anymore because I've seen way too many collapses in the bullpen. So just going pure for pound, Nola better than Corbin. I would back this minus 175 first 5 all the way to minus 200.
Patrick Corbin, you are correct. At home last year was just as bad as he was on the road, coming off a murky start in his first one of 2024. Last year, opponents on base percentage, slugging, OPS, all worse at the Nationals' home ballpark. DeBundo, and the best number for that play right there, the Phillies in the first 5, is at BetMGM, our presenting sponsor. DeBundo, you want to weigh in on Aaron Nola and what we made of him from last year and how it translates to this season?
Yeah, I mean, look, Nola has always been an interesting case early in the season because he's openly commented on the fact that he relies heavily on feel and he pitches better when the weather is better. The conditions were not very good on Saturday. It was ugly. It was cold. And he did not have his best command. And I think that was notable from the jump. Yes, there was some bad luck for sure. I mean, Travis d'Arnaud took an 0-2 curveball that he like barely contacted and hit a 2-run double the other way that like wasn't hit hard at all. Other than Albies' homer, there wasn't a ton of hard hit balls in that game, but he did leave too many balls over the middle. So, you know, with Nola, it always comes down to the command because that's what's his calling card. You kind of always have to be a little hesitant, but the weather does look pretty solid today in DC for him to have better feel and better command. And like you said, you know, the Washington lineup doesn't have a ton of pop. So that's been his biggest issue. It's been the long ball. Offensively, I just like the Phillies against lefties better. They have a lot of right-handed bats that have really struggled to start the season. Realmuto aside, Turner, Castellanos, Boehm have really not hit the ball. They get to see lefties, which they've only seen 2 lefties so far. They hit Max Fried pretty well. But the biggest thing for me is that they have lefties in Schwarber and Harper that hit lefties well, and then it just gives the platoon advantage to their righties. So you can't really neutralize the Phillies lefties with a lefty, and then you give an advantage to the righties. So I do like Philly generally more against left-handed pitching. So I don't disagree with Charlie. Just a little hesitant on Nola right now with the early season command, which we've seen him have problems with in the past. I mean, he got shelled opening day last year and then followed up with a gem in the second start, though. So, you know, we can't overreact.
I know you've been eyeing the K props and the early going this year, more unders than overs. Correct me if I'm wrong, but in this case, for a best bet, you are eyeing an over on a K prop.
Yeah, Jared Jones over 5.5 strikeouts, plus 112 against the Baltimore Orioles. Look, I think we have a budding superstar in our hands, and I know that Paul Skeens is getting all of the hype in Pittsburgh. He's still in AAA Indianapolis, but I've told Pirates fans this. I think Jones has better stuff, and he might not have the same command as Skeens, and the fastball might not hit 101, but Jones topped out at 99.6 on the fastball in his opening start against the Marlins. Dominant. His stuff plus of 149 was the best of anyone in baseball that pitched at least 5 innings. 169 stuff plus on the fastball. Now you expect guys to debut a little higher than they actually will sit because they have so much juice. But I mean, the numbers are crazy. 10 whiffs on 17 swings on the slider. That's a 59% whiff rate. I'm laughing as I say this. He threw 38 fastballs. 26 of them were swung at. 11 were swung and missed. 42% whiff rate on the fastball. And here's the impressive thing. Even when he was in the zone, you couldn't hit it. 57% zone contact rate on the fastball. So he said it's kind of Strider-esque. He doesn't have a fully developed arsenal to this point. The secondaries beyond the fastball and slider probably still need some work. But he says, here's my fastball. It's dominant. Try to hit it. And then people can't. Here's my slider. It's dominant. Try to hit it. And then people can't. So, you know, I'm not saying he's Spencer Strider, but I'm saying that he has the upside and the stuff to match a guy like Strider. The command is the biggest question mark. He gets a Baltimore lineup, which is pretty league average in terms of swinging strike rate and called strike whiff rates. Like if you look across the board thus far, Baltimore's lineup is not like some plus put the ball in play lineup. They're average in patience. Like it's a pretty average plate discipline lineup right now. And I think it could get better if they embrace the younger guys a little bit more. But, you know, so long as they're starting Arias and Mateo, there's going to be strikeouts in this lineup. And I think he has a great matchup against anybody. But he'll hit well, and eventually we'll see teams make adjustments and get a book on him. But right now, I mean, early in his career, I'm very impressed, and he dominated the Marlins in his opening. So I'm all in on Gerrit Jones over 5.5 strikeouts plus 112. I think it's worth a ladder too. I think, especially with these new guys, there's more uncertainty in the market on how good they really are. So maybe you look for some ladders.
Okay, very good. Keep an eye out for Dubundo's ladders in the Action app potentially for this 4:00 start today between the Pirates and the Orioles. Let's find out if the guys are going to fade the public today. First game of the day at 1:05, Yankees and Blue Jays. The public loves New York. 92% of the bets, 98% of the cash on the Yankees. Yusei Kikuchi is on the mound against Marcus Stroman. The former Toronto Blue Jay is facing his former team. Stroman has bounced around quite a bit since his Blue Jays days, but he's on the mound today. Charlie, eyeing the Blue Jays and Kikuchi, or is there another play you'd like and not have to back a Yankees side with the public money?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly lean toward Toronto. I think that the money that's poured in on Yankees, but we've kind of seen Toronto move down in odds, showing a little bit of sharp activity that way. Just from a pitching standpoint, Kikuchi, Stroman, I think are pretty equal. Maybe Stroman has like the slight advantage, and then the Yankees obviously at home and a better offense. But I'm targeting a player prop here, and my eyes actually like popped out of the skull when I saw that this number was next to Vlad Guerrero Jr. at plus 155 for 2 total bases. I understand it's Stroman. I understand he keeps the ball on the ground, but Guerrero's underlying numbers this season have been pretty impressive. The success hasn't come. He has a 208 average, but 70% of total balls that he puts into play are hit hard, and he has a 276 expected batting average. So de facto, getting some unlucky bounces, hitting the ball hard. It's just right at players. And his expected slugging is 552, and his xWOBA is nearly 100 points higher than actual. So just a bunch of positive regression due for Guerrero, who's seeing the ball at the plate, putting the ball in play, and hitting it hard, just has not fully been able to find the open gaps, spots, whatever. And yes, it's chilly outside in New York, but the winds are blowing 15 to 20 miles an hour out to deep center. So that also helps Guerrero, a guy that can put the ball in the air and deep. Stroman, obviously a ground ball pitcher, high ground ball pitcher, a lot of sinkers and cutters, but did have his career worst expected batting average last season, his lowest hard hit rate, or highest, I should say, since 2016. Vlad doesn't really struggle against the pitch mix that Stroman has. His biggest struggle over the last couple of years has been against the changeup. This year, he gets the sinker and the cutter, and you look at his numbers against that, he's got about a 313 expected batting average against the sinker, 366 against the cutter. So I like Guerrero to get things done here. Think he can even hit a home run, but plus 155 for 2 total bases made me absolutely shocked and had to jump all over it.
All right. And that's on the Stroman side of things. Dubundo, you're targeting an angle on Yusei Kikuchi.
I'm interested in Marcus Stroman this year because the Yankees have given him a cutter. And I'm also more impressed with Charlie, who managed to give that entire thing with his eyes wide open as the entire East Coast seemed to have an earthquake mid-recording. That is a new one, not something we're too used to here in Philly, New York, and Boston. But that being said, I am interested in Stroman because the Yankees have been a cutter factory for years. They give every pitcher a cutter. That's kind of their thing. Nestor Cortez, like his cutter was part of his huge breakout. They've done it with a lot of their bullpen guys. He threw a lot of cutters in his first outing. Cutter rate last year, 9.5%. First start, 36%. And the pitch grades out really, really well. He threw it to left and righties. He had a lot of success. Only 1 hit, 6 at-bats. The impressive thing, 55.6% whiff rate, and then you pull up the stuff on it, 153 stuff plus on the cutter. So did the Yankees unlock something with Marcus Stroman? I'm intrigued. I want one more than one start to like buy in, but I think it's something that could be real. And we've seen the Yankees do this before, so that's why I'm kind of a believer. And I'm also selling Kikuchi. His stuff has always been great. His command has always been shit until last year when he had that great year. And we were like, wow, look at Kikuchi. He figured some things out. Well, spring was pretty bad with command. First start was pretty bad with command. He doesn't look like he's really found it. Now he gets a Yankees lineup that's bottom 5 in chase rate. They don't swing at bad pitches. Soto especially, but other guys in the lineup, they're not a team that's going to go wildly swinging up there. over 2.5 walks for me at plus 145 is worth a look. And I actually do lean toward the Yankees. If we get more sharp money on Toronto and I can get the Yankees below minus 145, 140-ish, if it gets to that range, I'm going to play New York because I do think that Stroman, these are two veteran pitchers. We know what they are at this point, but I think Stroman could get to a different level that Kikuchi can't right now because of his command issues. So that's where I come down on this game. We did just get a Toronto lineup. No surprises there as far as who's going to play, but I do think that the Yankees are interesting because of Stroman's new cutter.
All right. Make sure you get there quickly. Be safe in the process, with the earth shaking as we record the podcast. But Yankees and Blue Jays at 105. That was nuts. I still can't wrap my head around that. So Charlie's eyes widen when he likes a play, but his eyes also widen when
4.8 magnitude.
The earth is shaking.
I foreshadowed the earthquake coming based on me saying my eyes popped out of my skull when I saw the plus 155. Now
the aftershock will be when Vlad barrels a ball into the third row of Yankee Stadium's outfield.
It'll be like Hines Ward returning a kick in Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
The field just collapses at Yankee Stadium. That's a joke. That would be terrible.
Apocalyptic Fridays, baby.
Oh man. Okay, I like that line too on Kikuchi. Stuff great, command shit. That's good. Well, that's kind of who he is. All right, let's do underdogs, and we'll have some final bets before we get out of here, before the world ends. Charlie, the price has moved a bit on this, but you're targeting the Boston Red Sox. Why?
Yeah, there's slight underdogs here. Kind of a cop out from me, but
Yeah,
I'm a total. Listen, some of these underdogs I'm not too fond of, and I am really liking what they did with Cutter Crawford, the Red Sox, and I'm going to back them over the first 5 again. Not betting into this bullpen stuff because Kenley Jansen almost gave me a heart attack against the Athletics last time.
He is a tough
dude. Yes, he is, and so I'm going to go with Cutter Crawford here over the first 5 innings as a slight underdog. It's extremely promising to see the development that he's made. The last few starts he had 7 strikeouts in the last 4 last season, and then this year comes in, strikes out 7. Now it's against the Mariners who are slumping a lot, but the strikeout rate around 32%. He already had elite command, and I think the biggest thing and the biggest difference is, and Devando mentioned the introduction of a cutter to Stroman's pitch mix. Well, Cutter Crawford threw his sweeper 37% of the time against the Mariners, and that was a huge jump up in what we saw last season with him in his pitch mix, being able to not throw his fastball as often, and it generated a 30% whiff rate. It was one of his best pitches. The Mariners really didn't know what to do with it. The ball moved a lot out of the zone, and he allowed just 1 hit on 31 pitches on that sweeper. So I'm going to continue to buy him here. He was a huge underperformer last season with his expected ERA in the low 3s, his actual ERA in the low 4s. So given just the recent track record of success that he's had, the Red Sox seemingly being able to turn these pitchers into higher strikeout guys that already have strong command, and they're playing an Angels lineup that isn't too scary right now. An Angels lineup that, aside from Trout, I'm not looking to buy. So I like the Red Sox here. I think that this team, and I talked about it early on, the offense is a bit underrated. Jarren Duran is obviously at the top of the lineup, playing out of his mind right now. Only a matter of time before Devers gets fully going as well. And I would look toward Crawford's strikeout prop too. It's right around 5.5 at even money, minus 110 even. Just if Mickey Moniak plays is kind of what I'm waiting on because he's a huge strikeout guy. But like the Red Sox here over the first 5. Griffin Canning in general just doesn't wow me too much. High barrel rate, high hard hit rate last season, 45% and 10% barrel rate. And this year was no different. First start was no different. Hard hit rate on 45% of balls put in play. Didn't get any strikeouts against the Orioles and really struggled.
Crawford struck out 7 over his first 6 innings pitched against the Mariners in that extra inning loss for the Red Sox. It's the Andrew Bailey effect on this rotation in the first turn and a half for Boston.
They look good.
The defense is better too. I mean, the infield defense.
Raphael is good.
Yeah, but Raphael makes a big difference.
I like him.
And all their pitchers underperformed last year because their defense was shit, and now it's okay.
It's comparable, yeah, for now. But again,
wins over the A's
don't have me quite sold yet. But they got the Angels, and there could be a nice little home opener coming up here in Boston if they take care of business, at least win 2 out of 3. Okay, Debundo, really smelly one here for an underdog. What are you looking at for today?
The Chicago White Sox plus 160.
With Church.
I really don't. Yeah, shout out our baseball editor Colin Whitchurch, fan of that team. You know,
a lot of suffering in that household.
If you wanted, so the Royals took a lot of money this morning, and I get it. Like they won by 100 last night. The White Sox bullpen can't get anybody out. The Brady Singer looked really, really good in his first start. If you just looked at the results, I'm gonna say let's hold the phone here on Brady Singer and say that like we've seen him have dominant starts followed by really poor ones. There was some good batted ball luck in his favor in that start. There wasn't anything particularly different from Singer that makes me feel inspired. The stuff numbers weren't like, whoa, look at that. So I kind of just think he had a good start, and that can happen. But I am intrigued by Eric Fedde because Fedde is a Korean reclamation project, and all the stuff numbers liked him more in spring. He completely revamped his pitch mix. He's never had a fastball worth anything, so he said, I'm just not going to really use it as much. And, he's used a splitter a bunch in the first outing. He used a sweeper, and then he dropped his sinker usage below 40%. So he's hiding the bad pitch and using these new pitches that he has, and they graded out really well, both well above 110 stuff plus on the splitter and the sweeper. Kind of the last 2 years of pitching is last year was the year of the sweeper. This year, everybody's throwing splitters now, and they were really effective in generating swings and misses. So over 3.5 strikeouts is minus 135. That's very good for me. I think that's fine. And then I think Fedde can be like a middle of the rotation guy. I mean, the last time we saw him, xERA 5.6, 4.8, 5.4. This year, I think he can put up an ERA in the mid fours. That wouldn't shock me. So he's always had great command. Yes, I don't really like the White Sox. I'm not going to sit here and say good things about them, but the Royals bullpen isn't all that much better and is amped to blow a game at any time. So I like the White Sox plus 160, just a small play for me, but certainly the one dog on the board that like stood out as like that line is not right, given there's not that much of a gap between these two starting pitchers right now.
All right, White Sox at 1-5 over their first 6. Royals 3-4. So two hold your nose teams in the Central right now, with the Tigers at 5-1 atop the division early in the season. Okay, couple more final bets. Charlie, you got first 5 target, another total bases play, and then Debundo's got another strikeout prop. We'll get out of here before the world ends.
Yeah, first 5 under 4 in Mariners Brewers. 2 guys that I think have Cy Young potential. Logan Gilbert. I mentioned Cutter Crawford's introduction of sweeper. Debundo talked about Stroman's of a cutter. Well, Logan Gilbert also added a cutter. And I think this one has been more impressive than Stroman's cutter even. The stuff plus grade came in on that at 160, and not one of the 13 that he threw were put into play for a hit. And I think that this new pitch allows him to throw his fastball less, which was his ultimate downfall, was like high barrels or hard hits off that fastball. Well, now he has the splitter, the cutter, the curveball, which he changed the grip on too as well, and that fastball, which he's throwing less. Makes for a great arsenal, makes for a great pitcher. We saw in his debut, he really found success. Already had elite control, so it's not like he's going to walk in a bunch of runners. The Brewers offense in general, not that impressive. They're right around league average in WRC plus. They don't hit for power much at all, bottom 10 in isolated power. Aside from Christian Yelich, really, I'm not too worried about this team making headlines. And then Freddie Peralta, it was against the Mets, but looked great on opening day. Last year, had elite swing and miss stuff. In the second half specifically, had a 2.81 ERA across 13 games, just 49 hits and 103 strikeouts in 73 2/3 innings. So a guy that I'm looking to buy, a guy that I think has, all the ceiling in the world. His issue was when he had runners on, he was not able to strand them as often, but he limited barrels against the Mets. Yes, it's the Mets, but that's been his issue at times. And I think that both these pitchers are for real. The Mariners offense as well have the highest strikeout rate in all of baseball through the opening week, 30%. Julio Rodriguez does not look himself right now. Just altogether, I think this culminates in a low-scoring game between 2 better pitchers in baseball, 2 guys that I'm looking to continually buy. And then the total basis prop, It's really ugly, and I don't really want to do it, but I just have to because it's a buy low spot on Francisco Lindor, plus 130 for 2 bases. He has a 0.56 batting average on balls in play, a 0.42 batting average. Yeah, that's real numbers that Francisco Lindor is doing over the first 6-7 games of the season. But, and I mentioned Vladdy. Vladdy obviously has a higher hard hit rate, but Lindor, every ball put into play, 48% are hit hard. His strikeout rate still remains around career numbers, slightly higher this season, but not like an abnormally high where he's just completely missing the zone. He's still seeing it well. His expected batting average right around the Mendoza line. So you'd assume 150 points separating actual versus expected, that it will come back to fruition. He did have a couple of hard hit balls in the doubleheader and then in the game prior against the Brewers on Easter. So just think this is a great spot to buy Lindor. Maybe the Mets get going after finally seeing a win go through, but Hunter Green, high hard hit rate, high barrel rate, and a lot of fly balls. We know that about Hunter Green. That's always been his, Achilles heel. And he's way worse at home because Great American Ballpark profiles as a hitter-friendly park, nearly a half-run higher ERA-wise, and 12 home runs in 40 and a third innings at Great American versus 7 home runs allowed in 71 and 2/3 away from Great American. So think Lindor's live for a home run here. Think he gets on the right track. Just based on underlying numbers, I feel like he's, underperforming a bit, and Hunter Green always prone for a big blow up.
All right, very good. And Dabundo, we're looking at Dylan Cease strikeout prop. Which direction?
We're going to go under 6.5 plus 105 on Cease. The stuff looked pretty good in the first start, right around what we expect from Dylan Cease. The fastball command was really good, and he still couldn't get over this number in his last start. And it's the second time he's going to face the same lineup. So I think that helps the hitters the second time through. And the Giants have shown some impressive plate discipline and some really impressive swinging batted ball profiles in the sense that they're swinging at less at pitches outside of the zone they did last year. If you look at some of the improvements they made in the offseason, less Casey Schmidt free swingers, even, like a Jock Peterson who had a decently high strikeout rate, not in this lineup, and they're making bets on guys with better plate skills. Chapman kind of being the exception to that, but even like he's replacing JD Davis, who had an even higher strikeout rate than Chapman. So I think that the Giants this year are improved in terms of plate discipline. Their swinging strike rates and their called strike whiff rates are in the bottom 7, and they get Cease now, who, yes, we've seen good Cease, and that still, the stuff is not back to pre-last year. So we saw his strikeout rate dip last year. It doesn't look to me like it's ever going to get back to those elite levels again. So I'm a believer that Cease is just generally a little inflated in the K market. So I like under 6.5 in this one.
Okay, very good. I know we should have hit on this in the Fade the Public segment because we featured the Yankees and the Blue Jays, but just a quick thought with the Yankees playing their first home game. And I know we targeted Juan Soto, Dabundo, for a Dinger Tuesday play, but are you keeping an eye on plate approach for Soto here in these first couple of home games with the Yankees with that short porch and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing with Soto has been that he never pulls the ball a lot. He never hits the ball in the air. He likes to use the opposite field, and so it would be hard for me to imagine him changing his approach just because he's at home, but it would certainly benefit him. I think, he could pull some fly balls, add to his home run totals, but he's just never been a guy who's chased homers. They come when they come, but so far he has been lifting the ball a little more. That's encouraging, but Kikuchi's prone to giving up the long ball because his command isn't great. Leaves a lot of pitches, kind of up over the middle of the plate. So it wouldn't shock me if Soto got one, but I haven't looked at the odds board on that yet, to be honest. Normally only bet dingers on Tuesdays, and haven't done a ton of work on it.
Let me just check quickly and see where he's at for today.
Should be at least 4 or 5 to 1.
Juan Soto to hit a home run today, plus 360.
Yeah, not good enough.
It's short, yeah. Okay. Yankees started in Houston, then they went to Arizona. They're off to a good start despite not having Gerrit Cole, and they're at Yankee Stadium today, the first game of the day, 13-game slate. Find Dabundo and Charlie DiSturco in the Action Network app, and please follow those guys. And again, make sure you download the free award-winning Action Network app if you haven't done so already. Leave us a 5-star rating and review. Our earthquake handicap that worked into the show. Hopefully that doesn't disrupt the flow of the program and the flow of the picks. today.
5.5 they've upgraded it to magnitude.
I just saw 5.4 in New Jersey.
Yep.
I mean, none of us are in New Jersey, but wow, that's a first. Okay, very good. Find Debundo and Charlie, as I said in the app. For those guys, Brendan Glasheen, thanks for tuning in. We're back Monday morning for more Payoff Pitch Best Bets. Thanks for listening to Action Network's MLB Betting Podcast presented by BetMGM. Good luck. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.